Okay, so we should be okay.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. We'll call the March 24th general meeting of the UTRCA to order at 9:34 a.m. Certainly want to welcome everybody here. We do have regrets from Peter and George, and we do have a number of members online. Welcome to everyone. Certainly remember that Emily Chandler is here serving as the meeting host. So if you have any online connections problems or issues with technology, make sure you contact Emily, because I will be of no use to you. Today's meeting is being recorded, and so as normal, remember that our microphones are very sensitive, and so make sure that you don't say anything that you don't want people to hear. They are glowing green, which means they're on. If they're red, it means they're off. If you are a board member attending online, please have your camera on during the meeting, especially during the vote. Make sure that we can see that your vote happen. So with that, I will now read the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the Upper Thames River watershed is within the traditional territory of the Attawandaron, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Lenape peoples, who have deep, long-standing, and intrinsic relationships to the land, water, plants, and animals of southwestern Ontario. We acknowledge the First Nations community within the Thames River watershed who are connected to and by the Thames River. These nations include Chippewa of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nations of the Thames, Munsee Delaware Nation, and the Delaware Nations at Moravian Town. In the region, there are 11 First Nations communities and a growing and diverse Indigenous urban population. We acknowledge and respect local and regional First Nations as original, contemporary, and future caretakers of this watershed. We are committed to working alongside Indigenous peoples from across the region and Turtle Island to strengthen relationships, honor treaty rights, and improve watershed health. More important than ever. With that, I'll ask if there's any modifications to the agenda. None. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? None either. There are no presentations or delegations, and we'll move to administrative business, and that's the minutes from the February 24th, 2026 meeting. Is there a mover and a seconder for those? Mark? Jim? Discussion on those? None. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So that takes us to the next item, which is correspondence. No business arising, and that's the minister's direction on fee changes. Like we got in on the wire, but I'll turn it over to Tracy.
Yes, thank you, Brian. Through the chair. As you can tell by the correspondence received from the minister on March 10th, the freeze on fees, I always have a hard time saying that, is in effect from that March 10th date. Our fees had been updated effective February 1st, so those still stand. And it's expected, though, that the February 28th will align with the transition date for the new CAs, the regional CA, and that at that time there might be an opportunity to review fees. We'll be looking at consolidating fee schedules amongst the region as well. So a number of things will be happening between now and then, I'm sure. But just letting everyone know that this direction was received on the same day as the provincial announcement. So it's been included with the package. It's also a reminder as well that when we're talking about the freeze being in place, it only pertains to those fees related to planning and development matters, our land use planning, commenting, and our permit application fees. So just to clarify, it is limited to those types of fees that we charge.
Any questions from the board on the report? Seeing none, is there a mover and seconder to receive this information? Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Sorry, just to go back online, were there any questions on that? No, okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure on that. So that takes us down to 6 is reports for consideration. And item 6.1 is the board meeting schedule proposal, proposed amendments. I'll turn it over to Tracy for the explanation.
Thank you through the chair. We were aware of a couple of items that required schedule to be tweaked. One of those is looking at a potential for a closed session matter that is very time sensitive regarding legal. Having a new date proposed mid-April. The second item is noting that just the timing of the elections this year, trying to get something in front of this board for an approved budget process. Having a meeting in October would be beneficial. It's two things, making it a little bit challenging, giving staff a little bit more time rather than December meeting. Something in early October. October 6th is a date that staff looked at council calendars, but I know as counselors, you have many items that you're dealing with. There was only one conflict, and that was with Southwest Oxford on October 6th that we could find, but wanted to hear from you if that date worked as well. If it doesn't, there is an alternative date of October 20th, trying to avoid the Thanksgiving weekend being the putting that back to you to receive some feedback if the 6th would work as a potential date.
Skylar, please.
Thank you. I was curious about the November 3rd date. So the election's October 26th, and I don't believe that we'd be sworn in until November 15th. So I don't really know. I mean, I assume that we are still serving on the Upper Thames board, but we won't be technically elected officials, I believe. So I don't know if that changes anything in the bylaws.
Yes, thank you, Skylar, and through the chair. That is one of the things with our appointments. Our appointments currently under the Conservation Authorities Act are extended until a new appointment is in place. So regardless if you're still serving or not at your council capacity, you are still the appointed member of our board. I think we're hopeful to have maybe not so heavy an agenda, maybe a recognition type day instead. And thank everyone for their time participating on our board this term. But more to figure out as the year progresses. But when you're talking about appointments, it is currently outlined in the Conservation Authorities Act that until a new appointments are. Usually those appointments happen later in November. Typically, I think our earliest is around St. Mary's is usually first off the top from recollection in past years, but usually mid-November to late November is when we start receiving appointments for new representatives. And this will be a different process this year as well, given it being the new regional board. So lots of factors up in the air for what that November might look like.
Skylar, does that answer? You got thumbs up for Sandy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That kind of raises a question for me in a couple of pieces. One is, if I understood what the general manager just said, is that there may be a need for an appointment for a stub year of the existing CA, and then a second set of appointments, perhaps, for the new regional conservation authority. Because frankly, that seems also what's going to happen from an accounting year is that there'll be, our budget will go to at least the end of 2026. But then there'll be perhaps 2 months in 2027 where this authority will still be in existence before the regional shows up. So I guess what I'm doing is preparing folks for sorting out the appointment process in the transition, because it raises governance issues for both organizations, really. And for us to get a budget in place means the November 3rd meeting is the budget for that 2-month period, I would think. But again, the devil's in the details, and I'm sure it'll work out.
So right now, the way that the information coming from the province, and again, we haven't seen the legislation or the regulations, but it's that this board, that's the reason why we need to have that meeting in October, is to try to get that budget for 2027. That will be a portion to your local municipalities as it is now for 2027. It's not just for 2 months, it's for the whole year. But the appointments for that new board will come from the upper tier. So there'll be possibly taxation without representation, or representation without taxation, depending when you look at it. So I think there's still a lot to unravel, but this is kind of a proactive approach by staff to try to make sure that we have that in front of seeing those numbers in October, where everybody is still solidly appointed, and we know that's going to happen, is probably the most prudent thing to do to try to communicate that back to the councils, what the board's intentions are, so we hopefully don't get into a situation where there's confusion, for lack of a better term.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further questions of the report or concerns, input on the dates? Both the 14th of April and in October. Jim, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that representing the 2 other communities in St. Mary's, I'd be available on the October 6th, but not the 20th.
Okay, if there's no further questions, is there a mover and a seconder for the recommendation, which would be that this board amends the 2026 meeting schedule to add a second meeting in April on April 14th, 2026, and that the board moves the previously scheduled September 22nd, 2026 meeting to October 6th, 2026. Anna and Eva, discussion on that. So I appreciate everybody's flexibility. I certainly agree with Jim that the 20th is probably not the best. You're getting very close to election date. It's a busy time of year, so still work to do. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. There are no reports in camera, so that takes us to reports for information. The first is the update and decision on the provincial proposal to consolidate conservation authorities into regional conservation. I will first turn that over to Tracy for presentation.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Chair. Through you, you'll see that there's a number of attachments included in the report. This is material that was circulated by the province after the CA's information session, as well as the letter that's provided from the minister as well, also dated March 10th, similar to our past correspondence, including this here, so that members have all the information together. But trying just to put together some of the highlights, of what we know so far with the announcement. Again, there's lots of moving parts with this, and as was previously mentioned, there's still a lot of detail expected to come. And those details being through amendments to the Conservation Authorities Act, and also future regulations are anticipated. So next slide, thank you. So with the provincial announcement that was on March 10th, the province raised a number of concerns. These were reiterated from the same communications that were posted at the time when the consolidation was first announced and posted on the environmental registry. That being a patchwork of standards and service delivery throughout CAs, outdated and fragmented data systems in place, administrative duplication, and need for more accountability and transparency. With the consolidations that were being proposed, guiding principles included retaining that local influence, maintaining conservation authorities watershed-based jurisdictions. That was maintaining where the current extent of watersheds as conservation authorities currently exist in the province, and not expanding or reducing those areas that they're covered. Reducing that administrative overlap, duplication again, to strengthen CA capacity bringing everyone up to the same level of service standards and same technical capacities. Continuation and continuity of services that are being provided, so without reductions of services being proposed, and improving customer services. Next slide. So with this announcement, instead of the 7 regional CAs, they split made some amendments throughout the 9 regional CAs. I'm going to focus on the one most relevant to us in the Western Lake Erie Regional CA. That was dividing that broader Lake Erie Basin, which was both the gray areas and the orange areas on the map, and splitting it into the 2 regions. Again, those regions also look at our source protection regions. So the Grand, that is one source protection region for the Eastern Lake Erie Regional CA. And with us, it combines the Thames and Sydenham source protection region and the Essex region source protection region together. So with these consolidations, the timeframe that's being proposed is early 2027. Slide. Looking a little bit more detailed, seeing the amalgamation of the 4 CAs, including ourselves, the Essex Region CA, the Lower Thames Valley CA, and the St. Clair Region CA. St. Clair is in one of those unique positions where part of its watershed flows to the north into Lake Huron, but also to Lake St. Clair and then ultimately Lake Erie. Again, we've been working collaboratively with the Upper Thames, the Lower Thames, and the St. Clair through our source protection plan for many years. Next slide. The regional governance piece is one where we've already had some questions about this morning, and where I'm expecting some more detail to see the regulation updates, but particularly to be at least at a high level explained in the CAA, the Conservation Authorities Act. The goal still is to maintain that municipal governance model. Participating municipalities will appoint board members and pay levies. However, those participating municipalities are being shifted to those upper tier and single tier municipalities only, and no longer the lower tier or area municipalities as we know them. So that's being a major shift, I would say, moving away from those local voices at our tables. Many of you representing our area municipalities and having that knowledge of your local communities to bring to the work that we're doing. Next slide. So when we're looking at the participating municipalities within the Western Lake Erie Regional CA, it's still a mouthful for me. Within the upper tier, there's 7 counties. The areas where there's the Upper Thames municipalities, we've highlighted those in bold and identified the number of area municipalities represented within those upper tier counties. Again, we're looking at Essex and Lambton. Lambton's a little unique because it also includes the city of Sarnia. Elgin County, Huron County, Middlesex County, Oxford County, and Perth County. And then those single tier municipalities, including Chatham-Kent, London, Peely Township, Stratford, St. Mary's, and Windsor. So with this, at least we've gone from the 81 municipalities that were initially proposed down to representing 39 area municipalities or lower tier municipalities. A little bit of a shift, and as we've said, it is an improvement, but it's still covering a large area with vast geographic differences. Next slide. Again, what we've heard from how the governance will be provided, whoever's appointed, still based on participating municipalities' percentage of population within the regional CA's jurisdiction. Right now, there is a method that the province provides for establishing the percentage of population. That's often spread throughout that geographic region. We tend to look at where Statistics Canada has data and look at where the specific populations actually reside within those regions. So it'll be interesting to see how those calculations are determined, in the information provided by the province. Each participating municipality is required to appoint at least 1 member. there can be rules associated with this. They've suggested that there may be a cap on the total number of board members from a specific municipality, not to overwhelm the board with one area. Representation, it could limit any one municipality's number of members as well. So these are the details that we're still anticipating to receive. Sure, everyone has lots of questions about how is this actually going to work. The timing again is after the October 26th elections. Newly elected upper tier municipal councils will select their first members. How quickly that will happen, that's a great question. Because again, this is making sure our municipalities are aware of this new process. Talking with one of my counterparts in the St. Clair, he was having a meeting just last week with Lambton County because really they have never worked very closely with Lambton County in the past because they've always worked with their area municipalities instead. So conservation authorities may be new for some of these upper tier municipalities to have this intimate arrangement with. So there'll be a learning curve on behalf of our municipalities as well. Next slide. One thing that's also included is that each regional conservation authority is to create at least one watershed council. From the messaging provided, it's to ensure watershed management continues to be informed by local knowledge and input. And this is more of an opportunity for input, understanding on the ground. It's uncertain if there's going to be much in the way of governance through decision-making at local councils, or is it to be, again, that understanding, that knowledge and input for the decision makers on the regional CA board? Still wondering about that. Their goal for the watershed councils is to identify those local priorities and interests to be considered by the board. Okay. For considerations. Some of the language is what tweaks for me, and being more of an opportunity for input. With these watershed councils, there will be membership requirements set out in regulation. Understood that they'll be set very much like our source protection committees or source water protection committees. And it may be the requirements for similar to source protection committees, having industry, agriculture, and health units and Indigenous representation and municipal engagement. So until we see that regulation, we're not sure, but that's what we're expecting. Some of the impacts that we're concerned with on the governance side, and we know how conservation authorities across the province, particularly with ourselves in the Upper Thames, created far back in 1947, was really that partnership between our member municipalities. Having our municipalities want to create conservation authorities, and because of the local knowledge and expertise and those local issues, that allowed for decision-making regarding the management of watershed natural resources. So really that grassroots background and history of conservation authorities, informing how the development of programs and services are delivered throughout our specific areas. We think that regional CA, such a large geography, very different geographically, very different issues within our region. Lake Erie shoreline, eroding bluffs, flooding in those Great Lakes regions when lake levels are high, very different issues than what we've had to experience in the Upper Thames area or watershed. But also being such a large area, that community connection at local level representation and that shift up to the upper tiers, be interesting to know the knowledge of who's being appointed, how much they know about us, if it's an area that perhaps doesn't have as much. I mentioned the Lambton County, not as much understanding of what CAs do, having not been involved with CAs in the past. And making sure that there's still that meaningful influence in decision making. So And we've recognized it to even from the first concerns with the consolidation being posted on the ERO, that risk of losing those local voices. And especially in our watershed, that balance between rural and urban representation, given the population. I know currently under the Conservation Authorities Act, it's representation by population or through agreement. And we've had our agreement through our order in council, last updated in the mid-90s. And a big part of having that representation and discussion around this table and the size of this board was about balancing that urban and rural voices. So that we know that watershed councils, they will be a benefit because that will be kind of the key route to hear those local voices. Also sharing the timeline here that was shared with us from the provincial slides. You know, March, the decision was made on the boundaries for the regional CAs to proceed with the plan to implement the consolidation into the 9 new regional CAs. That was the March 10th announcement that was identified as today on the screen there. Through March and April, and this is where we're expecting changes to the CA Act set out in regional CAs to set up, I should say rather, this regional CAs, establish the governance and initiate the transition. So with the budget bill, I'm imagining a schedule included in that budget bill released later this week will be the proposed changes to the Conservation Authorities Act. So we'll get a bit of that detail now, and then regulations to follow at a later date. Through May, right through till early 2027, the Imperial Provincial Conservation Agency, UTRCA, will be overseeing the gradual and organized consolidation process. And in early 2027 is when the 9 regional CAs will be formed. The regional CAs will continue to implement transition plans and report back to UTRCA on progress, commencing in spring 2027, moving forward. So, and then UTRCA will continue to lead improvements to CA system and providing that central leadership and oversight of the 9 regional CAs. Next slide, the transition process. From the earlier slide, again, the UTRCA will be establishing specific transition committee for each regional CA. The transition committees are going to be developing and implementing our transition plans to integrate those key functions. Lots of questions already about finance and budget, as well as HR, our assets, IT, with guidance and resources from UTRCA. Understand with the $3 million that the agency has through the transition process, that is to help with resourcing some of those challenging HR issues, especially when we're dealing with one CA that does have a union environment. The rest of the 3 CAs within our region do not. So that'll be an area where some additional HR expertise will be needed. With the committee membership, each CA is to appoint 1 municipally elected official, and it'll be myself. And then UTRCA will be appointing a project executive who will become the inaugural CAO of the regional CA for up to 24 months through this transition period. The transition committee is all about consolidation. So in early 2027. Next slide. This is a little bit more about funding. We understand the province is spending 20 million to create the new UTRCA agency and have established a new annual $3 million fund. And this is administered by UTRCA. It will be to support CAs and coordinate the transition of the next year, with minimal disruptions to CA's governance and our programs and services. So there wasn't much more about that, except that after the transition occurs, that $3 million will still be available to CAs for other needs yet to be determined. Next slide, with the transition process, a lot about the 2027 budget. The minister will be able to issue specific directions to manage 2027 budget processes for the 36 predecessor CAs. That's the 36 current CAs. And it's expected that there'll be some more clarity around timelines. They can direct that CA budgeting be completed by December 31st, 2026, and levies to be issued to the current participating municipalities. So budget for 2027, much like we typically would, although typically our budget process doesn't complete until the AGM. This would be pushing it forward, and as already mentioned, about appointments and where we're at with governance. So again, as a staff, we want to make sure that we've got everything pretty much wrapped up before with our current board, and before transition is fully complete. Next slide. Of course, we have economic concerns. Province, municipal, again, based on our 2026 operating budget, there's only 3% that's contributed by the province of our overall programs and services. Certainly need additional investment. The $3 million province-wide for setting up the transition costs is perhaps a start, but certainly not sufficient for the amount of work that's going to be required. We know that our member municipalities currently fund 32% of our overall programs and services, and how that cost share model could unintentionally create consequences and inequalities between those urban and rural municipalities' ability to pay. So I know Middlesex County just had a report going to their council about, these are costs that the area municipalities have been including in their budget process. But if that's uploaded to the upper tiers, what are those financial impacts there as well? So lots of questions, not many answers yet, but that's something that we're going on. There's still been no cost benefit analysis. We recognize that there's going to be significant costs for transition, everything from IT systems, rebranding, policy and staffing harmonization. That again, I look at the 3 million across the province and don't think that's quite adequate. And then I know our questions around this boardroom table have always been about financial reserves and the funds that we've generated locally, and recognizing that those need to be delivered back to the communities or the property where they originated. And I know there's many other CAs that have a large number of donations of land holdings, and very concerned about maintaining those in their intent. So want to make sure those things are taken care of as well. With the Environmental Registry of Ontario comments, there's certainly the narrative from the province that's provided. There's been a number of staff at CA that have shared just some high level, again with some caveats that it's an IT or AI type search engine, but looking at the concerns from the comments on the environmental registry, I believe it was over 5,000 on the registry alone, and but 14,000 total, but 5,000 on the environmental registry alone, and another 8,000 some odd in comments submitted directly to the province. But still, the outstanding concerns were about that scale and scope, recognizing that these regional boundaries were too large to address the specific local environmental, social, and economic needs, and really move away from effective watershed management units like we have operated in the past. That loss of local control, losing that municipal representation, the democratic accountability and tailored environmental decision-making, and recognizing the local areas, the geographic context, and the issues within the areas that have created conservation authorities in the first place. The risks when we're talking about transition, about service interruptions, staff turnover, organizational instability during consolidation, particularly during high development pressure and climate risks. Again, I know we've already seen it at one of the CAs within the region where 2 of their senior water resources engineers have found work elsewhere at a municipality. Again, maintaining staff. The goal through all of this is to maintain staff levels I know some will be a little nervous, but everything that we've heard and everything I'm seeing is there's going to be a lot more work to do. And we're going to need those staff to continue to do the work they're doing every day, and perhaps over a larger geographic area. But again, the work that we're doing on the ground isn't changing. When we're looking at financial doubts, the big question was, is there any evidence that supports consolidation? Will bring any cost savings? Concern that any large mergers lead to higher administrative costs, and already looking at those transition costs to start merging these IT systems, human resources. You know, I'm thinking about pay grades as well, and bringing everyone up to a standard. There's costs with that. So more to find out as we go through these transition processes, but I don't think we'll be savings, just saying that. And then the last comment about efficiency and effectiveness. Of course, there's arguments for more consistency and improved service times. The critics on the ERO anyway suggested that too much the focus has been on shortening approvals for development, ultimately risking long-term watershed health. I would share that's the same concern. We've been working hard to improve and streamline some of our approval processes, engaging a consultant to look at different mechanisms that we can have in place. We had recommendations for additional tools for e-permitting platforms. Now with the province suggesting that they're going to be delivering an e-permitting platform, well, we've paused that. We're going to be waiting for what the province is providing. Not sure of the timelines and how quickly that'll be provided, let alone. Those are some of the concerns there. Next slide. Guess our next steps. Our goal is still for no disruption to our work. Goals are still to protect people and public safety and environmental health. We're committed to protecting the watershed at the local level in the Uplands watershed. However, we're still going to work collaboratively with our municipal partners through this transition period and beyond, and also collaboratively with our partner CAs within the Western Lake Erie Regional CA. Whenever we have updates, we're going to continue to review and communicate those future changes from the province back to our boards, our members, our municipalities, and our staff. But really right now, it continues to be business as usual. As I just said, yeah, we still have our watershed protection and environmental services, everything from conserving our conservation areas and trails, providing our drinking water source protection programs, watershed monitoring, the protection and management and stewardship programs, our agricultural extension services, and our education and partnerships programs. So there's still lots of work to do in the Upper Thames, and I think even more work to do more broadly within the Western Lake Erie Regional CA. So that's all of that. Any questions? I'm sure there's lots of questions. I don't know if I'm going to have many answers, but I really wanted to give this opportunity so that although everything was attached, wanted to make sure that we're highlighting some of the things that are in the report, in the information shared from the province, and what we've been discussing as staff and as GMs across the region.
Just before we get into questions, obviously there's going to be a lot because we don't know a lot. So just keep that in mind that again, a lot of this is what's been put out by the province. That's all that's you know, what is the slide deck that's put out, the presentations that were given to municipalities and CA GMs and chairs are basically identical, but they just didn't highlight anything more than what was in the slide deck. It was presentation of the slide deck, and certainly that'll be the goal, is to try to keep everybody informed as stuff goes on. But again, this is about all we have at this point. But with that, I certainly will ask for questions. I know Mark, that's it.
I guess my first question would be, is it based on annual budgets in that area? Of the 4 CAs that are getting combined, are they all relatively the same as far as staffing numbers, revenue numbers? And if they're not, does everyone become 25% after the amalgamation?
So that's something that can't be answered at that point, because again, the regulations and the legislation has not been written, and that's really what we need. My fear is that we're gonna see something that was akin to the Police Servicing Act, that upgrades that took place. That legislation was in 2019 that it came out, but, you know, when it came to time to implement that for police services boards or attachment boards and municipal boards, they're writing regulations after the fact that came in. So, there's going to be a lot of information. That's a tight timeline that the province is gradually on. There's a lot of questions, and every day I think that, you know, something pops in Tracy's head, whatever. The more you think about this, the more rabbit hole you go down, because there is such complicated and different organizations. And so I think that's where a lot of the transition committee work will be focused on. And certainly those are the kind of things that we do need feedback from the board on through that process to be able to highlight as well.
And just a related question, obviously, we have our pie chart to sort of say, well, how much revenue do we need for category 1, category 3, whatever. And in this case, would the other 3 conservation areas have a fairly reasonable even pie chart that resembles ours? And the reason I think of that is the 3 conservation areas, the campgrounds, and you sort of think, well, revenue that's brought in, but revenue to costs to operate those facilities versus what might be the case in Lambton or Essex or Lower Thames.
Yeah, I can through the chair. Yeah, to respond, yeah, we are very different sized organizations as well. That was one of your questions. And but our budget processes are very similar in that, yes, we still have everything separated out into our categories of programs and services. We might have different programs and service levels and delivery on some of those areas. But at least how the framework in which we budget is similar, as you could say. We'll have similar pie charts. Maybe the percentages will be different, but like I say, that representation of where our funding sources and where our expenditures are will be similar in that way. But as GMs, we are meeting. With our first in-person meeting is tomorrow afternoon to start to go out down and forecast some of these anticipated outcomes or requirements of our transition, and have those more detailed discussions about everything from what financial software we might be using to our budgeting process. You know, there's so many things that are on that but we want to just get a start on that and to set up perhaps some teams where as organizations we have our HR people all talking together to start working out what might be on their work plan for 2026 in advance of our transition period. So lots of questions still. We haven't fleshed that out, but yeah, this is the start of having some more detailed discussions in advance of setting up these formal transition committees so that we're in a good understanding state of where we're at and sharing what we do know.
The problem with for staffs in this position and boards and municipalities and everything is that the province is really driving this. And so to try to make assumptions and to try to put things in place, you know, if it was just said, hey, you guys transition, yeah, it would probably go a lot smoother, but you have to remember that they still haven't appointed the board to UTRCA, who will be appointing, that board will be appointing the project executives. So that hasn't happened, and the direction coming from that, who knows what that will be. So we may go through a logical process, and that's the four CAs will go, this is what should happen. And then someone's going to pull a rabbit hat and go, look at this. We're going to do this instead. And so it's hard. It's really hard to go tell staff to do all this work without knowing exactly. And again, I'll go back to the police services boards. There was a lot of boards that got set up, the detachment boards that got set up early. And it was like, well, now we got to go back and change everything because the province didn't telegraph what they wanted on that. So it's going to be a cautionary tale of wait and get told to try to make sure we do the things that the province wants, because they're in the driver's seat. They've said that they're going to control that whole process, but they have to set up their infrastructure to a point where they can actually give that direction to the CA. So certainly support all the work of that information gathering and stuff like that, but it's hard to. We're gonna be very patient as a board, I guess I'm gonna say, to be able to, as those, at that timeframe for those decisions come forward, to allow staff to have that direction and us to have direction from the province on what they want. Mark, did you have a follow-up? Sandy?
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to hear that the general managers are getting together to map out some of the pieces that are going to be necessary in order to turn 4 organizations into one in a very short period of time. Having gone through a hospital merger, the task in front is going to be very, very rapid and going to be bumpy in various spots. And I share what you're saying is that you can only do so much until we get some more detail through regulation. But at the same time, we can't wait for the formation of transition committees to begin the work. So at least blocks of things like accounting systems and HR systems, et cetera, needs to be mapped out before that starts. Because frankly, we don't even know who the province is going to appoint as the supervisor, who may be from the area, may not be from the area. I certainly hope they will have experience in mergers in some way, shape, or form, but they can't possibly be broadly based enough to know everything from accounting to HR. And looking for somebody who's got good leadership skills to be able to lead the transition committee. But 8 months, 7 months is going to be a very, very challenging time, both for us as a board or all the boards involved, and certainly for the general managers and whoever from our body gets appointed to that transition committee. You know, particularly those of you who are running for re-election, you're gonna have some pretty awesome responsibilities on that transition committee. I can see them meeting fairly regularly for until the end of the year, but I leave that for later.
One of the things I'll touch on there is, I think we all have to be conscious of what that initial consolidation is. And that's, again, we need that direction from the province. Is it going from 4 units to 1 complete new unit right at the beginning, or is it a name change? Like we've heard that, the name, the badge UTRCA will still say UTRCA after that day. So is it an umbrella organization and then a slow transition? And that's why it's so hard to be able to know really. And what is that goal within the next 8 months? We're going to have to be patient and wait for the province to say what that is across the board. And until then, certainly do the great work that we continue to do, and hopefully it never stops saying UTRCA is cool, right? But at the end of the day, it's so hard to know what staff are trying to prepare for. But certainly that information gathering is key, and we've been doing that. Staff been doing that a lot as part of the changes for 2019. Now asset management, we got reports on there, but it's certainly a challenge. I think we all recognize that, and part of that challenge is not knowing what the challenge is. Further questions, Jim, please.
Yeah, when I read through everything, and the first thing you see with the transition additional funding of $3 million, the number sounds good. Then as I start thinking about it, and you're going down to 9 CAAs, and when you split that up, it's a drop in the bucket. I mean, you're getting 1 program or something, it's very little, and it's concerning for the transition.
Well,
And I understand that an answer today may not be the answer and on the 14th or in 2 weeks or whatever, and there's so much unknown. But from the governance angle, my understanding is that the Upper Thames will continue to exist until this undefined early in 2027, whether that's January or June. What's your definition of early 2027? And as part of that, still being the Upper Thames, this board will still exist until that time, whether that consists of the people that are sitting here now, or some of us won't be elected officials either by our own choice or by the voters' choice after the middle of November. So, and what I'm saying is that the understanding that the Upper Thames will exist, this board will exist until the transition takes place. And we will still have decision-making powers up until that point.
That's an assumption right now. Again, I think it would be a logical assumption. But that has not been, that details have not, we know there's gonna be, that's basically what you got is early 2027. We know that the upper tiers will appoint new members to a regional. This board will set a budget and pay for the lower, the current membership, whatever that may be, but beyond that, that real fuzzy part in there has not been defined whatsoever. And hopefully it will be. My guess is that even with legislation, that may not be defined. That's probably going to come out through a regulation. Usually that's where all the nitty gritty happens. So, but again, you don't have the board, you don't have the OPCA set up. You don't have that institution that was designed, the agency designed to do this anywhere near functioning. I don't believe there's been any postings for void appointments if they're going to do it that way, or they're just going to say you're on the board. So again, it does make it, I know all of our blood pressure is rising on this. As elected officials, we sit around the table and I don't think any of us would be comfortable at our staff levels, at our municipalities or here, or I think, saying, well, we're going to do this in 8 months. That's doesn't seem possible. So that's why I'm really cautious about projecting too much for the government, because this is their plan. This is their timelines. I'm hoping they have a plan in behind the curtain that they're willing to share at any time to make this happen, so we don't have disruptions to our programming, our services, our conservation area, our development community, any of that to go ahead and happen. But to me, the message is until they tell us what to do, we just keep marching ahead as what we're doing right now, and we'll shut the lights off on the way out, I guess, when the new board takes off over.
Follow up on the budget preparation, because budget preparation is 12 months job it appears, but so we're working on the Upper Thames budget. Is it an Upper Thames budget, or is our staff consulting with the other three to work some of that? Because it's kind of a weird situation where we're working on a budget for an organization that's not going to exist at some point.
Yeah. Heard the chair, good question. We still anticipate for the 2027 budget to be levied to our area municipalities as they stand today. So I think this will be the year where we're starting to look forward, but I mean, considering how other budgets are made, and we're having those early discussions. One of the areas they have a deficit within their category 1 programs, and they're trying to make the determination, do we try to play catch up this year and 2027 budget be where we balance that budget because it's mandatory programs and services, or do we defer that down to that it becomes the issue within the regional board? The other piece of it about budgeting is, as mentioned in the slides, the minister can be providing direction on budget. So we don't know what that direction might be. It may be, no increases. It may be a COLA increase. I'm not sure what that looks like yet, but I'm anticipating that there will be some minister's direction provided on how we're budgeting as well. So lots of uncertainty. And as we know more, I'll share more. There are as well intended to be some technical briefings with the province. We were told soon. We haven't seen any appointments yet on when those technical briefings will be, but and as I know more and as more information is shared, I'll be sure to share.
Just remember that the intent is not to shut down conservation authorities, is to keep them going, and all the rhetoric and all the messaging has been like the same service level. So my guess is that the province wants those budgets in place to give the new regional portion time to be able to do the work to do towards transition more. So, but also the rhetoric and the from the province is that you're not going crazy on them. Don't try to sell the farm beforehand, right? So I think it's more of a status quo of here's how you, here's what we need to operate the current, and then give that time for transition over, which, you know, I think is probably a fair, as fair as they could be on that one. From their point of view, they probably, yeah, you don't want to be selling assets and everything out, liquidating and putting that future organization at risk for different. Further questions? Anna, please.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, and I know there's a lot of unanswered questions that we all have right now. I'm gonna stick with the budget and hearing that work goes forward as planned. I also see the pressures of the changes that staff have to undertake to make these changes happen. Who's paying for that? I would think right now would be municipalities because there's more work to be done. So if I got that right?
That's what I believe. Again, we're not certain what aspects the agency will take on in some areas. Whether they be some of these information systems or IT systems that are new. You know, I know we looked at e-permitting software, and that would have been a cost. This is now something that the new agency will be providing. Not knowing what transition costs that will be attributed to either this project executive undertaking or the agency doing, or is it more giving direction and expecting our existing staff to be doing the work? I think it's going to be a little of both, but again, until we know more, we first have to start having those technical briefings and having the project coordinator or project executive, I think is the term they use, appointed, then we'll be able to have a better understanding of what those financial impacts in the time.
Time will tell. I appreciate that because it's hard not to think about the amount of work that LCAs are going to be undertaking through this transition, as well as maintaining the work that they have to do. I'm trying to look for a silver lining here, but I maybe just a comment about these watershed councils. Who knows what that's going to look like, but I'm really interested in knowing a little bit more, and hopefully they will not come after the fact of the region. And so I just want to share that with you. That information is really important because it can assist municipalities, especially when it comes to local decision making, and that's got to get out front as opposed to after. So thanks again.
One of the most important things here is getting information out and doing that. Part of that is trying to schedule delegations to each of our member councils. I was at Temp Center last night with my first one, and it's really trying to get that communication, and certainly need help from board members as well as that is certainly whether it's encourage that communication between the CAs and the municipalities and the new regional members as well. The earlier they get involved, so the contacts are there for staff and everybody to be able to share that information.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know as we transition from one municipal council to the next municipal council, we do orientation. I would think this would be a big part of orientations for all municipalities as well. So thanks for that reminder.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that there's so many unknowns, but I was extremely happy to hear Tracy talk about the CEOs from the other three getting together to discuss, which I'm sure is going to filter down to the managers involved at IT to find strengths and weaknesses. You know, even though we don't know something, that they're being proactive and getting on top of things.
And on that, I've also reached out to the chairs of the current chairs of the other, and we're trying to find a date together as well to have those further conversations. Again, this is one of those things where we know Upper Thames, but Essex, Lower Thames and St. Clair, not as much. So trying to get that perspective, how they're feeling about this and the concerns and stuff, so we can share that as well. Jean?
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, and my question's through for Tracy. So through you to Tracy is just a budget question as well. Impacts on our contracts that we currently have. Are there any that extend or some that might have costs associated with them if we have to cancel them? I'm imagining you have so many contracts out there for so many different things.
And through the chair to Chief. Yes, we do have lots of contracts and agreements in place. They are calling this a statutory amalgamation. So with that, intending for in name to change, but for contracts to continue as is. As well, even with more recently, and I'm sure even past minutes, we've put in succession clauses to make sure that the new entity, at the time we weren't sure what the new entity would be called. So, but any new entity that is formed in our place would continue those same obligations. So, yeah, not sure if Grant has anything else to add from a legal's perspective, but this is something where, again, the intent is to be as less disruptive as possible during this time.
Wow, it's great. It's a huge question. You know, I thank you for including me, but all I can think about as well is liabilities all across the board, you know, as directors, liabilities to employees, liabilities to municipalities, but it's good fun. Trite, it's going to be interesting, but I don't think we know what I'm reminded of when they put together all the school boards and the consternation that caused. So I just think it's fascinating to sit and watch at the moment and then see if we can design things that, help all our vision, staff, human resources, IT, and we don't know.
And these are all things that OPCA is supposed to assist with, like the messaging from the province is that that's what it's designed for, and that transition committee to try to highlight those, but there will be a long list of items. Well, please, and then
Back to the watershed councils, were they included in the original proposal that came out? Or does it appear that this is perhaps a response to the thousands and thousands of concerns about loss of representation? Even though, I think you referred to it, they're not going to be anything more than advisory, because we've already got minister, we've got the agency, we've got the boards of the regionals. The limit to how much power can be spread around. But just a comment on the creation, because I think that's a good thing, but.
If I can, through the chair, yes, it is something that one of the questions asked during our real session in London was about how can there continue to be local watershed knowledge. I know during our session, the idea of watershed councils was suggested. I believe it was suggested at other sessions as well, but making sure that there was still some opportunity for local push. So that it seems to be one of the areas where they addressed the comments received and taken information back to ensure that at least one watershed council per region is included. Could include up to all 4 in our case, each having a watershed council. There isn't a cap either. So if there's, there could be more. But yeah, certainly that is an area in which they wanted to continue to see that local knowledge and local input.
Did you have a follow-up, Paul?
No, I was just making a comment that there is, compared to the last few meetings, there is some good news here. The first good news is that it's not the giant 81 municipalities, including Grand River, one of huge area. personally, this, I didn't think that the province was gonna say, oh, we changed our mind. We're gonna leave everything the way it was. I thought dividing, because our area had the biggest change of all. So I think that was a win. To some degree, and then the watershed councils are a bit of a weak too. So although we're not thrilled about what's happening, it looks better than it did a month ago.
Sandy.
Thank you. I want to go back to Jean's question and you to Grant. I mean, my big understanding of the law is that a successor organization would take on those contracts. That there isn't any issue in that piece of the transition. Is that correct?
Well, yes, and let's see what the legislation, let's see what they bring forth.
But the case law being, in the absence of any other direction, that the contract with Upper Thames becomes a contract with the Regional Conservation Union.
That would be logical.
Thank you.
Mark, please.
Yeah, I guess just one, kind of a double question from me, just more concerned about reserve funds we may have now if they stay within our own sort of watershed, because they were owned through our watershed. And the same thing being any land sales that we were possibly thinking of undertaking because it was excessive property that wasn't deemed necessary, if those revenues would stay within our own watershed. And the same thing for the other three, obviously, too. And we're not stealing money from Windsor, and they can't steal money from us, so to speak.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of questions on that and concerns. I certainly heard that Thames Center last night, and I'm sure I'll hear that throughout as people have contributed a lot of money and funds we all have as individual municipalities towards a common goal. And I think that's going to be shared regardless of what conservation authority is going into different regions. I think everybody's going to have that concern of that money was raised locally for local purposes within the watershed. I don't think you're going to have too many bodies fighting each other on that one. But again, that's something I know that's on staff's mind and everything as far as trying to do that. Just in the interest of time, there's a lot of good discussion, and this is a big one. This is the biggest one for us. Again, if it's a question we're going to receive this as information. There's going to be a lot more information coming forward. There's going to be a lot more questions that come up. Encourage you to write those down and share them with Tracy or myself, so we can make sure that they're addressed. But just in the interest of time, is there anything questions that anybody need answered today? Seeing none, with that, I would ask for again, everybody's patience moving forward. There's going to be a lot more information. There's going to have to be a tsunami of information come forward at some point. So we're going to get it whether we want it or not. And that's going to translate into work on everybody's parts of it, especially our staff. One thing I do want to address staff on this is that we know from the conversations with the province, the intention is to have everybody sitting in those chairs the day after transition. Really, it's going to affect us at this table way more than anybody else. And I'm even going to exclude these two people. So when we're talking about this rhetoric, it's important that you know that from everything I've heard from the province, they value what you're doing and they need to continue that. And please don't expect Armageddon from one day to the next. I don't think that that's going to happen. And I think that, the message that we're sending the municipalities and everybody is that the great work that you're doing is going to keep happening because we need it to keep happening. It's for a good reason. So take the questions around the table and the rhetoric is us fearing for our own jobs. Do enjoy the work. And I think it's valuable for the local voices at the table, which we all, I'm sure, agree with. So is there a mover and a seconder just to receive for information? Paul and Dean? Discussion? Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Now we'll go on to a more interesting topic of asset management. I know that Mike Knox is here to available to answer any questions, but I'll Tracy as well.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, I just wanted to provide an update on our progress with asset management. The summary table, I think is a great addition there, just outlining some of the progress that we've made in each one of our asset categories. The software implementation stage has been key and nearing completion. And then that life cycle reporting is underway, depending on which category. And even refinement. I think that's the key here. I've heard from some of our municipalities too, that yes, they've had their asset management plan done for a couple of years, but then going back and continuously updating it with new information, refinement, especially as we have larger projects completed and we have a better understanding of costs associated with some of those projects, just to make sure that they intend to extend the longevity of the structure, for example. So again, we certainly want to make sure that with our asset management, especially those assets with specified reserves, really focusing on tying those together for early summer. Some of the comments that were raised about making sure that funds that were raised in our watershed are going back to a specific asset within our watershed. Having that asset management plan tied to those specific funds, I think strengthens the reasoning for keeping those amounts in the asset categories that they are, because those assets are needing of life cycle improvements over time. So we're fortunate we do have a budgetary reserves policy kind of outlines that. We have specified reserves for specific assets, but making sure those two are really coordinating is the goal. And certainly a priority for some of our assets more than others. At Brett, we've got plans for our campgrounds and some of the reserves that are in place for those specific uses too. Not sure. Mike, again, he's in the back of the room there. I'll move up if you have any questions. But between the two of us, we can try to answer. Sandy, please.
The only thing is, again, it's a transition issue. There's 3 other conservation authorities with similar plans, different software perhaps. I'm sure Mike is going to continue to be busy working with other folks on that piece of the transition as well.
Exactly.
Skylar, please.
Thank you. And I just want to share, I was excited about this one. I noticed the green infrastructure one is to be initiated, and I just wanted to share that I know the City of London staff are kind of waiting to see how Upper Thames will evaluate their green infrastructure and then apply potentially a similar unit type or a similar assessment protocol. So I just want to say that I'm excited to see that come forward, and it probably will be used as a benchmark in the area. So just want to not add more stress to your staff, but say that it might be a bit of a benchmark for other communities.
Excellent. Yeah. I share that. It's always a hard one. Trying to create a whole new system to organize that asset and to recognize it.
Oh, to follow up on Sandy's comment about this, the software programs, do you know if the other 3 conservation authorities are using these 3 programs? And if not, is that going to cause a problem on moving forward?
Yeah, maybe I could start. That's one of the items that we're going to be discussing as GMs, kind of that inventory of where we're at. Mike, I believe you said that St. Clair is using citywide as well. So, or was it Questica?
So yeah, through the chair, St. Clair region is using Sage.
Sage.
Well, that
Which is the financial accounting side of the asset management.
that's another one of the many things we need to find out
Exactly.
before we invest more time and energy into these programs if they're not compatible.
Well, a lot of these programs will, the information will come and be how much consolidation can happen.
Yeah.
At the first stage. There's going to be roadblocks where you're going to be able to go, okay, this can't happen right now without significant investment. And so, there'll be some things that can happen day one, but I guarantee you, these things are going to come up over and over. We're fairly early into the asset management journey here. I'm assuming that some of the other ones, smaller ones, are being less so. there's, as with municipalities, there's varying degrees of where that is, right? So, I think most important with this is that we started that journey. And it never really ends. So it needs to be updated all the time. Further questions? Now, is there a mover and a seconder to receive this information? Anna and Sandy? Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. 8.3 to the health and safety annual summary. This is a report we receive every year, and it's certainly full of a lot of information. Haley is here online to answer any questions of the report. Anything staff want to highlight?
Yeah, no, thank you through the chair. I just highlight, this is a very thorough report that you see annually. We try to outline everything that's happening, and I know our health and safety team, Kaylee, take a more proactive approach when seeing certain injuries occurring, focusing on that training, participating within the health and safety excellence program, and some of those things that have identified our topics moving forward, and so that we can continuously improve on the health and safety that we're providing here at the Upper Town. So yeah, thanks to Kaylee, all her work and managing that and improving our systems that we have in place. And I think you had reports before. We've been had financial benefits from participation in that WSIP program. And so being able to make those investments back in health and safety as well. That was good to see.
Thank you. Questions of the report? Seeing none, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder. You and Jean, please. Discussion. I do want to thank staff for their proactive. Obviously, we have ministry visits. It's it's one of those things of scrambling around, and so it looks like they were able to address all those issues, which is always good, and it's important to keep everybody safe going on. At the end of the day, that's the goal, right? I know it's a little bit hard when you're working outside and different things. It gets a little more difficult, but yeah, it's good to see that there was no major injuries and everybody's able to do so. Mark?
Yeah, I guess just curious about this health and safety excellence program and why it is that we're no longer a member of it June of 2026. Is that something that's done in stages or short terms?
Haley, do you want to answer that one?
Yes, good morning. Sorry, I can answer that. So the Health and Safety Excellence Program is a year-long enrollment. So since we began in June of 2025, we're still actively in it until this June. And then we will be able to pick new topics and start again for 2026 into 2027.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments?
Yeah, I was glad there was no UTRCA staff member at the gatehouse at the Conservation Area. Was collapsed by a truck.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Anything further? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. That takes us to our 8.4, section 28 status report. Questions on that? None. Mover and a seconder for that information. Jim and Hugh. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And project status update. Tracy, do you have a couple?
Yes, thank you through the chair. You'll note, kind of starting from the things that were completed, removed a bunch of items with the changeover, the rollover to our new year since the AGM. But also kind of dividing the table into two separate ones as to kind of the report backs that we regularly our requests from the board versus those are kind of our ongoing or quarterly updates. So just to keep those two a little bit separate in moving forward, as either have a quarterly report, they have a specific report back provided, whereas or as needed. Whereas the other ones, we usually try to manage our agendas in our meetings and lay out kind of a time frame. Of course, we always have some unexpected items that come to pass, either vacation dates or needing to be away for other matters. But those are kind of the general targets for the next few months anyway. And I'm certain that in the future reports, once we have a little bit more detail from the province, we'll outline probably an entirely separate table for the action items for the transition. So we'll keep seeing some changes to these updates. But again, so that everyone kind of has at least a general plan of when things are on our to-do lists and when we're able to report back.
Any questions? Cindy?
Just to be sure, the hydro plant report will come sometime next month. I saw it on the schedule.
Yes, that is the plan, although.
I recognize there's always
There's always
hitches, but
something.
presently, we'll see it next month. Thank you.
Mover and a second to receive this information. Mark and Dean. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. That takes us down to the Thames River Current Art Edition. Remember to sign people up for it. Lots of great information in there, tree program going on, and all the active stuff to make sure that nobody got flooded out in the events. You know, everybody was actively doing that, so it's great. The mover and a second to receive that as information. Jean and Mark. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. That takes us down to reports for committee update. There is no report for the Finance and Audit Committee.
Other than to say it's likely, or at least I'm hoping it's likely, we're going to see the financial statements after the April 28th meeting.
And there is and no report from the Hearings Committee. There is a meeting on April 20th, I believe, for the Hearings Committee. So, are there any notices of motions? See none. Chair's comments. Like I said before, I'm reaching out. I think I got 12 delegations, about 20 booked right now. Hopefully see each and every one of you. For London members, I do have a call scheduled with the mayor Thursday morning. It's been a bit, usually goes through PEC, and so just trying to get that going through there. So we'll have that discussion. There's also a meeting of the watershed mayors with Minister Flack that the mayor was kind enough to set up on April 8th. So we'll see, hopefully, I'm guessing there'll be legislation out by then. And so be some more information from that ministry on perspective. And I appreciate Minister Flack taking the time to meet with the mayors that way. Yesterday was a fun little event here. Labatt's became a partner, a longstanding user of the Thames River. At one time, they used the water of the Thames in their brewing a long time ago. No, it's a great initiative that just got started. They're going to provide starting with $10,000 towards the citizen science part, and have their employees volunteer time. So it's exciting to have that. And I think I know Peter's not here today, but Peter was here representing the city as well, so that was good. And yeah, great group of people. And so, you know, it's great to see those little things start and recognition of the great work and that they want to see happen in the community. They have longstanding. Hard to believe it. They're longer standing than Hughes, so that's. Had to get it in there somehow. But yeah, it was a good day. So with that, I will turn it over to members for any comments. Mark, please.
The Thames River cleanup was April 18th this year, and I'm not so sure everyone knows that day, but I guess this is the 27th year it's been taking place. But they do have their own website, thamesrivercleanup.ca. And the reason I mentioned that, on the list, there's whatever, there is 40 or different cleanup sites on there. And I always participate in the one at Woodstock, but there's quite a few of them that are looking for a convener or a coordinator for that site. So maybe you know somebody or someone that walks the trails lots or whatever, to be able to sort of say, well, will you take on that area? You know, with 3 or 4 volunteers, you might be able to clean up your favorite little section of a trail somewhere. So I'm just throwing that out there to check out the website and see geographically which areas still need conveners.
You.
Believe it or not, I was at the farm show, and I don't know how many 100 years I've been going to that. Upper Thames and some other conservation areas had a really good display there, and I think it was well attended, and it was a good display, so I congratulate them on that.
Steve.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to board members and staff members, the annual landowners workshop is coming up this Thursday, March 26th, 7 till 9 p.m. At the Crystal Palace on Wellington Street in Mitchell. I think this year it's a joint effort between ourselves, Maitland and Oswald Bayfield. So there'll be some landowners there to lead some discussions, give their experiences, best practices to share with the rest of the audience. And I look forward to attending on to represent Upper Thames at that function. So.
Further member comments? One I did forget is that on Oxford County's agenda tomorrow, we have a climate hazard assessment that really looks at those items that we all face. So it's an interesting look at what those realistic threats are and how we try to mitigate those, and send our municipal staff to work with certainly the CA staff to try to be prepared, which is always a goal. With that, I'll turn it over to Tracy.
Okay. Well, since Tom isn't here, I'll put the plug in for him as well. There is another landowner workshop being held at the Thorndale Community Center on the 25th. So yeah, looking at the time, that's tomorrow. I don't know where March has gone. It's been a very busy month, and I fear that that's the trend for the rest of the year. But certainly lots going on. We're hoping, we just went through a busy flood forecasting and warning season. Although we didn't have the major floods, there were still significant events, but all thanks to staff, everyone from communications to our engineers, our park staff who did the dam operations. It was certainly a busy time monitoring the watershed conditions, the snow melt, significant snowpack in the north end of the watershed, warming temperatures with rainfall, always make keeping an eye on things very important, and making sure that there isn't those impacts. I often think that, we're very fortunate as the structures that we have, the staff team that goes behind doing the operations, the team that's involved in communicating out to our municipalities and our flood coordinators. It's all a well-oiled machine that it makes it look easy. And I think sometimes our member municipalities forget all that's involved, because we are keeping things safe and we are doing our job in that way. But lots of late nights, lots of early mornings, lots of updates to see if runoff that was forecasted was actually received, and where it was received throughout the watershed, and what impact that has in runoff. So lots of variable conditions. So thanks again to all the staff for keeping an eye on that, and our municipal flood coordinators as well. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we're done with significant amounts of white stuff. And we have an easy remainder of the spring, but knowing that we'll be moving right into some of our busy times. You've already heard about landowner workshops, Thames River cleanups, our community events, our tree power programs, and our field seasons starting. And the shoulder season, April 1st. Lots going on in the next month. So it's when everything starts to ramp up. We start to see some more green on the ground, and we're getting up to the field, doing more work that the last couple months it's been the preparations for. So again, thanks for staff for making it all look so easy and it all goes so smoothly, because we're always anxious to get working with our landowners, opening our gates to the public, and from people to consider its nature as the weather warms up. So looking forward to that, and continuing to.
With that, I'll ask for adjournment. You, Anna, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? We are adjourned at 11:03. Thank you.
Glad to see St. Marie for the games for the notes.